I realize like a lot of people can work hard when everything's going well. Like when you know there's money on the other side, you really have to be able to work hard before all the results come in. You're going to see these results later. Just keep pushing through.
Welcome to the Kickstart podcast. On this episode, we have the pleasure of hosting someone who has worked in a variety of roles across marketing, business development, and sales before creating and running Light Recruit, a recruitment agency that specializes in engineering, product, marketing, finance, and sales roles. Ari, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. So for those that are a little bit more unfamiliar with who you are and your background, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I can give an overview. So I've always just been in different sales roles. And a few years ago, I started my own kind of like marketing company where I was actually helping companies generate leads. And one of my clients happened to be a recruiting agency. And I kind of saw the checks they were getting. And I'm like, hey, we could do this monthly, 2,000, 2,500 a month, or I could just work full time for you and, get some of these deals. And they're pretty chill about it. Like, yeah, sure, And I worked there for about a year and did pretty well. Well, I started Light Recruit in January. And basically what happened is at the end of the year, I was finding the clients, I was finding the candidates. They weren't necessarily asking me too much information about my agency that I was working for. So I just thought, maybe I could just do this myself. And he kind of wanted me to go back into a hybrid role. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I think I'm just gonna start my own agency. And I started in January. Definitely, learned a lot and it's starting to pay off a little bit. Beginning was a little bit slow, but now, I'm getting a lot more jobs. There's definitely some mistakes I made, but yeah, I don't know. I feel a lot more confident now. We've been working together too, so you can see some of the changes I made.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here. So have you always been entrepreneurial? So before you started recruiting, you had your own marketing agency. Did you do anything before that? Was that kind of your first foray working for yourself?
That was my first time working for myself. I did do some B2B sales. I also did commercial insurance. I did some software sales, then the marketing thing. Now this.
I think you did something smart. So it seems like you're kind of leveraging the skills that you're developing throughout your career. You had BD, marketing, sales background. You're like, cool, I want to work for myself. Let's do a business about something that I know. Marketing agency, that kind of makes sense. And then you kind of cross paths with a recruitment agency who's using you as a client. You're getting exposure secondhand about recruiting. You're like, oh, this is interesting. But then instead of like immediately going cold turkey and starting a recruiting agency then and there, you're like, you know what? Let me work for you. Like, can I just hire me so I can kind of learn from the bottom, learn the ropes? And then at some point, it seemed like you kind of got a good grasp of things. And then you decide to kind of jump and kind of bet against yourself again. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is like, everyone has their own story and they all kind of get different skills through business, through, whatever. And then you kind of make like a unique type of way to grow a business. So I was always good with, mass cold emailing. I was good with, picking up the phone, being able to cold call and just having all these, stacked different skills. When I decided to start my own recruiting agency, I was able to apply all that. And then, I felt like it was definitely important for me to get that year in at that recruiting agency. Boss was awesome, learned so much from him, super casual. And, it kind of fit my personality too, not overly formal calls, just, almost just hanging out and we're helping each other,
A lot of people, when they look at recruiting for the first time, they're like, oh, like it's so easy, right? Like you just have to find like clients, you just have to find candidates, and there's no other learning you're going to have to need aside from that. You shared, oh, cool, you've had some BD sales background, you know how to find clients, you found a way to find candidates, probably your job helped. And then you said you also learned a lot more along the way, or in a sense, that's when your learning starts. So like, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned, some of the biggest mistakes that you've made throughout your recruiting journey so far working for yourself? And then is it a lot easier than you thought? Is it a lot harder than you thought? Just like from someone who has obviously a little bit of a recruiting background before.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously learned so much from that recruiting job. If I would have just started day one and they're like, hey, we're looking for a JavaScript engineer. And I'm like, oh, JavaScript. Yeah. And I didn't know what that was. Probably not a great look. So I definitely learned a lot of the technical information. I'd say there's two things I really learned from having my own agency. The first thing is there were times where I was just riding off hope a little bit. Like I had a candidate. He was kind of, blowing through the rounds and, it feels good when you're like, oh, they're going through the rounds. But at the end of the day, that's just a feeling until, they get hired. That's all that is. So I've really learned that if you have a greenlit company, they're interviewing people, and even if they say, hey, we don't really want any more resumes, you should still just do it. Just because when that person falls through, they're like, all right, so who else you got? They're not going to remember. They're like, hey, stop your search. So that's definitely one of the big things is, don't sit in limbo. Like, oh, I hope this engineer crushes it. You really want to at least always be doing something, because it's such a good feeling if you're like, you have 4 other engineers, that one engineer, drops out. You're like, hey, I have 3 others. And then I'd say the other thing is just kind of having like faith in what you're going to do. If you're scared of everything, things aren't going to really get done. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want to cold call this guy. What if he gets mad or whatever? I kind of just have the mindset that's going to work out overall. So even if I call and they're like, hey, don't talk to me, one of those times it's going to work. So just, constantly doing actions.
How important was it for you to have prior sales experience before working for yourself now in recruiting? How helpful is prior or previous sales experience, in your opinion?
Well, definitely helpful with getting clients. I can even tell when I worked at a recruiting agency, there was other, great recruiters, and they would try and do business development, and they weren't as successful as I was at that. So I definitely utilized that business to business experience.
For sure. And what about like utilizing the sales on the candidate side? Whether it's like pitching the role, whether it's like, personalizing the emails or in mails or however like you like to contact candidates. How helpful is it to know a little bit of sales for the candidates?
Yeah, it's not even totally that different, to be honest. I mean, the biggest difference is, more candidates answer, but same idea. If I see someone who's really good, I'll send a personalized message. I have no problem, just calling. And it's definitely to me an easier cold call than a client, hey, I'm looking to get you 50 more grand. Like, you want to talk? It's an easier pitch than, hey, pay me. So yeah, definitely applies to both.
Do you have like an overarching tip or advice when it comes to BD with clients that you like to share with the audience? As you know, on the staffing side, you can't really make any money if you have no clients, right? And so learning or understanding how to be able to do your research, identify the correct people that you're reaching out to, crafting a really effective message is really, really important. It's half of the business, right? Half of it is candidates, half of it is clients. For someone who had previous BD and sales, what is your overarching advice? Do you have any, your favorite tools or plugins or something that you like to use as well for the audience?
Yeah. So I kind of do, I'd say, 3 different approaches to get new clients. One is I'll kind of do like a slight, like spray. I'll basically get maybe a bunch of, say, directors of engineers or CTOs or whatever you're targeting, and I'll get a bunch of their emails. There's so many ways to do that. I mean, if you want to do it manually, you could use hunter.io, and that's, first name, last name, domain name. It'll get you like 80% of the emails. If you don't feel like doing that, you can get Uply. There's like 5 million different sites. And the good thing about that is that can always be running in the background. So that's just like a sweet surprise. Someone just replies and they go, hey, yeah, I'm down to talk. And you definitely want to make those as personalized as possible to the degree that you can. That's one way. The second way is personal outreach. That's where, you actually say something that anything that, you could do to relate with, for instance, like a mutual connection. That's a great way too. If you can go into your LinkedIn and type in different job titles, like maybe like directors of engineers, anyone that you want who would be a good stepping stone. You go, hey, and that's basically goes into my third one where you ask different candidates for referrals to their hiring managers. And especially if you've been in recruiting, for at least a year, you're going to have a lot of those people. And that's how I definitely got some roles. And like, hey, I know you weren't looking for a job when we spoke. Do you happen to know who handles the hiring at, whatever company? And a lot of times if, they enjoyed speaking with you and everything, then yeah, they have no problem. It's definitely just trying a bunch of different things, not just relying on one thing.
Yeah, I love how you said that. And I think if you've worked in sales before, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer. But for people who are listening without previous sales or official BD experience, I love how you shared that there's a lot of different ways to get in touch with people. I think when you think about BD, immediately for default, most people will be like, okay, it's all about cold email, outreach, research, email, that's it. But there's so many other ways, backdoor. I love how you touched upon candidates. There's a great way that you can even develop businesses through candidates that you work with, word of mouth, referrals, connections to their previous or current employer. Like you just have to be really smart about it and be creative and constantly test new things. So, if you were to ask me the same question, I would respond exactly the same way. Of course, I am comfortable doing the in-mails and emails and cold calling, but you just got to think outside the box, right? And also
Right.
back that up with common sense. And I think also what you said before, like, you just have to be comfortable taking action. I think this is not just recruiting specific. It's like just business specific. Like if you're working for yourself, whether it's a freelancer or solo, you have aspirations of scaling a team and you are afraid to do basic business or sales, B2B or one-on-one things like cold calling, emailing, like business is going to be tough for you, right? Especially in recruiting where we get paid talking to people, right? Like we literally talk to clients and candidates all day. If you're, first of all, afraid to talk to people, or second of all, you can't even do like that, level 2 stuff, which is even basic calling, emailing, you might have to find another line of work.
Yeah. And I'd say it's also like a mindset thing. You have to just be okay with messing up. Like, I mess up all the time, but so many good things come out of those chances. So I don't think people are necessarily like, it's not the scariest thing to call someone. Like it's scary to do like a backflip or something. It's like scary. It's just, they're scared that, things are just going to mess up. And it's one of those things where you have to be cool with that. It's not that big of a deal if you call someone and they're not interested. Like, who really cares? So right when you get that mindset that like, whatever, I call this guy, they're not interested, I'll just move on. Definitely should help.
Yeah, the way I see it, you're right. It's a muscle, right? Like that's how you learn. You just have to get feedback. You're going to be probably horrible in the beginning, but then you keep trying, you'll get better and better over time. But I think it's that fear of failure, the fear of rejection, especially if you're someone who hasn't gone through a lot of that in their career. I can see how like if you're pivoting from that into like working for yourself, where all you're going to deal with is fail and rejection, it can be very, very hard, even just taking that first step, right?
Yeah, and even if you have an awkward call, sometimes it still works. Even if you're like, wow, I sounded really weird on that, but they're just happen to be interested and
Mhm.
whatever. Say it's a candidate and they like that job, it could still work. So, you don't need to be perfect every time you do anything in life.
This is why I always tell people if you're looking to go on the staffing side and work for yourself, the best thing you could do is like get a sales job. A sales job is the closest thing to like the closest taste people are going to get to working for yourself, right? Because in sales,
Right.
you're going to deal with rejection every day. You have to start from zero every day, start from zero every week or every month. Rejection, failure every single day. And it's not a lot of other jobs where you kind of experience that scale multitude of failure and rejection. And that will, if you're able to push through the initial humps, you're just going to get numb very fast. And you're going to be like, oh, wow, it's actually not scary. I expect it. It's all about the mindset and framework. And if I can push through, then results will inevitably happen. Right. And so I can kind of see that from your experience, even with me before recruiting, I did sales and BD as well. So as well as like starting my own companies that also just failed miraculously. So failure wasn't new to me. Like I'm used to it. I know that that's how I learn. That's how I get better. And I embraced it. So it's cool that we have that commonality.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think it's way cooler if, all right, something goes wrong. There's two ways to handle it. You can just be really bummed out and sad and not move. But I think it's just way cooler to be like, all right, things went wrong. Let's take action a different way. I just think that's like a more inspiring reaction to, you know, they said they hated the two candidates I sent. I could just be bummed out, or, I can just be like, all right, well, let's look at exactly what went wrong. I know it seems like we hit everyone, but I bet you there's a way we haven't thought of. Maybe we need to do more cold calling to candidates since they're not answering their, LinkedIn or whatever. So I just think how you react to things is definitely super important.
Yeah, exactly. And then what you said before about not putting everything in one basket, 110%. Like I never bank on just one client. I never bank on just one candidate. I've been doing this long enough where even if you think you found the best rock star in the entire universe, there's a chance that candidate could still get rejected. And if that person gets rejected and you don't have any plan B, plan C, plan D, you're starting from scratch and from the ground up all over again. Might as well get a second, third, fourth ready to go so that you keep that momentum and keep that healthy pipeline. So I think that is like one of the biggest tips that I would give people, especially on the staffing side, is just even though you want to, and even though you think like, oh my God, I lucked out and find this person, I don't know if I can find someone else, keep digging, keep sourcing, because like you don't want to be in that situation where your only client decides to drop you, your only candidate doesn't get the job. That's a horrible feeling and I hate it so much. So I do whatever I can to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, 100%. Can't just rely on one or two people. Got to just keep it moving.
So you started your own firm in January, it's September, so you're almost done with like your first full year, and it sounds like you have a good thing going, Ari. And for it almost sounds like it can't get much better as a first year in business than this. Like you're already finding some clients, or finding some candidates, you're getting into a good groove. And so I noticed that on your company site, you say that you work a lot of different roles. Was that intentional from day one? Were you more specialized earlier in the year when you started, like only focused on product or engineering? Or did you just decide to kind of take more of like a wider, broader approach? And why?
Yeah, so I would say I still primarily do engineering and product roles, but I am definitely open to other roles just because I've had success doing other roles. And I mean, as a lot of people know, the economy was kind of, not that great at the beginning of the year, especially for tech. So I just wanted, I was just open minded. I felt confident that, I had to find a sales person. I found that. And, I did it without filling the sales role before. And they had no other, they felt like I, been doing it for 10 years. So it's just one of those things where I just feel like I could do other roles as well. But I definitely lead in with the engineering and product because that's what I have the most experience doing with. And I have a lot of candidates I've talked to over the time that I could start sending. I mean, the reason I picked the name Light Recruit is light is fast. I don't know. I don't know if that's kind of cheesy, but that's my whole idea. And we've worked together. You can see I can be pretty quick. And that's the same idea I had. So I just want to be able to, after we work together, vet these candidates and start sending them hopefully first week in their inbox, 2 or 3 candidates. So I can definitely do it a bit faster with engineers, but at the same time, I've had luck with other roles as well. So
If you're working on a role that you never worked before in the past, what do you do on the side so that you just learn about it as much as you can, so that you kind of come off the phone as a person who kind of knows what he's talking about especially when you're engaging with candidates?
yeah, for sure. Well, you have to keep in mind, to me, engineering is like the most complex, obviously. You just have so many different tech languages and stuff. Like wrapping my head around, a certified financial planner is not crazy hard to do, but I do make sure I do. I mean, I utilize a lot of things. I use ChatGPT sometimes, and ChatGPT is awesome because you can just ask it the most obvious, annoying questions and it'll just answer. It's just like, it'd almost be like talking to an expert that you can just, keep annoying for 30 minutes and they won't be like, hey, stop talking to me. Yeah, I definitely do my research. And like, I have a few certified financial planners interviewing this week and it seems like they're doing well. And it's, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm pretty good with speaking with candidates. They like I'm pretty casual, I'm easy to work with. They can just text me and things like that. And I'm just very transparent. So yeah, I can make other roles work as well. Kind of use
Nice.
the same strategy.
So you mentioned it before, and let's touch upon it now. We have the pleasure of working together. In fact, by the time that we're filming this, we're still working together. Haven't been working together for quite a long time, but from my experience, like I partnered up and done splits with a lot of recruiters out there. And first of all, I love partnering up with recruiters. I think recruiting and staffing is one of those things where you don't necessarily have to like scale a big team as your end goal. You can still be like a really good solo recruiter. You can maybe even hire 1 or 2 people, and that's it. Life is like great, right? Especially if business is
Sure.
going on. And I think for staffing, where if you're focusing a lot on the full-time placements, if it's a lot of it is similar on the contingency side, right? Like the income can be great, but income's also just is not the most stable, right? And so splits and partnership is a great way to stabilize business, but it's also a great way for all the parties involved to win. If, for example, a recruiter has access or relationship with the client, this person, through an effective partnership, can submit more candidates in volume faster, making him look good. And at the same time, the candidate who's helping with the candidates, you have an open job to work, giving you more bandwidth, giving you a greater potential of just top line revenue that you can make if commissions happen. So it's a win-win, right? I think it's very easy for partnerships to just not work if there's like no trust, shadiness, just like misalignment with work ethic. But I have to say, Ari, like from the people I work with over the years, and even just what I'm seeing the past couple of weeks, on roles that like I don't really have experience with, that you have minimal experience with, it's just been a breath of fresh air to work with someone like yourself, but also respect with the quality and caliber of talents that you're sending over, which is just fantastic. And so like what is your go-to tool that you're using to source candidates these days? I loved how you also touched about speed, because like if you were to ask me what's my second biggest tip, is like just work fast, right? There's competition
Right. Yeah.
everywhere, but also recruiting is a speed game. Like companies want to hire someone yesterday, not tomorrow. So aside from speed, like yeah, how are you finding these great candidates? What are you doing? What other tips are you doing on your end? Time management, scheduling, coordinating to talk to them faster, to submit them faster. We just love to kind of you know, give the spotlight over to you.
Yeah. So main tools, definitely doing a lot of LinkedIn Recruiter. It really comes down to you got to do those great those keyword searches. So you got to make sure narrow it down, and then so a good thing. So a personality about me is like I'm not great at focusing on one thing like all day, which I think goes well with recruiting because you can just be talking to one candidate and then you can talk to another candidate and then work like another job and another job. And yeah, I mean that's just something I'm doing where I can just bounce around from different candidates, and it's just kind of prefer that instead of just having to work with one thing all day. But yeah, LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn in mails. I use Loxo a bit. It has an AI feature where it's I don't know if it's really AI, but basically you can just source from there and I'll send emails. But I would definitely say on the jobs we're working together, it's definitely been LinkedIn Recruiter that's been the best, and I think it's just being transparent, asking for the time to call. Yeah, just making those good searches. I'm not sending it to people who don't fit. You want to understand the role. I mean, a lot of times in these jobs, there's like three things they're really looking for, and that can get you, pretty close to the right candidate. So whether it's they have to have a certain license, or they have to have a certain knowledge or certain levels of experience, you just get as many parameters as you get down, and then yeah, you just send some good, transparent messages. And I just talk real casual. I don't make it sound like I'm some guy that's just very hey, I have this role I feel like you'd be a good fit for. I notice you have this on your profile. That's exactly what they're looking for. What are your thoughts? And then yeah, take it from there.
Are there anything that you learned just working with me, just through this partnership that kind of caught your eye, for better, for worse? Hoping for the better. I'm giving it over to you. Is it?
I can say right off, I love like little tips that like for instance, here's a tip I had from cold calling is where you wanted to end the call with 2 days if they're free. Like, hey, da da da, I'd love to talk about filling this engineering role. Are you free next Monday at 11 a.m. or Thursday at 3 p.m.? And that was always you say that at the end of every statement, because if they happen to say no, I'm not free those two times, that's the easiest objection ever. And you'd be like, all right, well, what about next week? So I love those little types of tips. And you gave one that was awesome where it's, when you grab the candidate's resume and information and notes, also get when they're available. And that's something that, could really make you fill a role, just because, like we said, it's all speed. So if you know exactly when they're available and you send it to the client, it's a lot less back and forth. And the more back and forth, it not only does it like hurt things, it's also like, kind of annoying. So you just grabbing those times, that was huge. Yeah, there's directness, which I totally agree with. That's something, you want to ask the hard questions up front, save you time down the road, because if they're not a good fit, they're not going to be a good fit in 2 weeks either. So I would say the directness and grabbing the times for like a very specific thing, I learned that's definitely going to be helpful.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot. I mean, it's probably the closest way of working with me and just learning by affiliation, like my way of working our systems and tools, than like being on my team, right? And so I'm always happy, like if I can give value, if I can help. I always look for ways from A to Z, like where is the biggest time sink? Where is the biggest time where like where are the biggest opportunities where you can just lose candidates, or just the process slows down, and how do we mitigate that? How do we shorten it? And I realized, to your point, you can find an awesome candidate, but if you don't get their availabilities off the bat, you submit them to the client, and the client's like, great, Ari, awesome. I want to talk to them. When are they free? Hold on. Now you have to go back to the candidate and chase them and do that whole. And sometimes with candidates, they can be super busy. They could be sick. They could be traveling. Some of them won't get back to you ever, or maybe weeks. You don't have weeks or several days to wait. Right? You want to move on that ASAP.
Yeah, and then you send it back to the client. Now the client has to find times on his end. It definitely just could add an extra week, which in recruiting, one whole week, a lot can change. So you want to just move things as fast as possible.
For sure, for sure. And then I know that with our relationship here, like you're definitely helping a lot on the candidate side. And behind the scenes, I do whatever I can to push and be an advocate for your candidate to kind of make things happen, also, or to just give you feedback, right? If the candidate got rejected, I'll let you know in real time. I will do my best to get you
Oh yeah,
feedback.
you're
So
great with that. Yeah.
right? I'll do my best to get your feedback, but also if they like a candidate, I'll be very persistent with my client and trying to create windows of opportunity so that we can kind of keep things going. So it's just great. And then, if you were the client and I was the candidate side, we'd have the same relationship too. And you'd probably see a fast stream of candidates coming from my end to you. So it's just been great. And I think like this is exactly how partnership should be. And I think like as long as both parties remain communicative with each other, there's obviously mutual trust and there's obviously consistency and great work ethic. It's inevitable. It's not if, it's like when placements happen, then they'll just happen and just in ample numbers, right? And so I'm looking forward to continue working with you, Ari. I'm even looking forward to more doing a first deal with you.
Sweet, yeah.
And we have proper reasons to celebrate.
Yeah, 100%. When you're where are you right now? You last time you were like in Norway or something. You where are you
No,
at now?
I'm back. I'm back. This is my home office.
Is that
In DC, greater DC area.
DC, right?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, I'm in Maryland, but I was from New York, and you're in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn right now. I think I'm gonna switch it up, check out Queens, which I know you're from. So
Yes.
you got any tips, let me know.
I'll tell you right now, and if people are listening, like I love New York City. I think all the attention's on Manhattan and Brooklyn. Sadly, I think Queens is the most understated borough out there in New York, and I'm biased. It's one of my favorites. Like I think your money goes a little bit longer in Queens, but the food, you got the U.S. Open out there, you got access to Long Island and Hamptons out there, right? It's just like it's awesome. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what you're looking for, but I think if you look in Queens, naturally everyone goes to Astoria or Long Island City. I decided to skip that, go further deep, and live near Regal Park, Forest Hills area, which I absolutely love.
I'll check that out. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like I checked out Astoria. I'm in Williamsburg right now. And
It's too simple to Williamsburg, Astoria. Like if you're gonna go to
yeah,
Astoria, long as stay in Brooklyn.
yeah, and my thing is like I don't need to live right next to like bar, like every like hip bar and hip people act like trains don't exist. I definitely care more about having a good apartment, having more space. Yeah, so I think about looking a little bit deeper in Queens and definitely putting like the apartment because like I have friends in Queens who, we pay the same monthly rent and they just have 3 times the nicer, I'd be having a way nicer background and everything in Queens. So definitely, gonna consider that.
Let's just do 10 placements together, Ari, and I'll help you fix get a better
All right.
background
We
there.
have a broker fee.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, I'm more than happy. Like, let me just give you one more 30-second spiel. So I live specifically in kind of the Forest Hills area. That's like on the cusp where things start getting more like not city, more like I wouldn't say suburban, more suburban urban feel, but you still
Right.
get all of the express and local trains there. You still have fantastic food, and it's so easy to get on the Lure to Long Island, or the train's easy to Manhattan, and 20 minutes away from both LaGuardia and JFK.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
I feel like the food is better in Queens too.
It is more. You get the authentic stuff from like the dives, the mom and dad, the family
I
stuff.
like the most. Yeah.
But those are the places I like to go anyway. Like I don't care about the fanfare. I want to get like quality, authentic stuff.
Yeah, like I don't want any place that has an Instagram page.
Yeah. Likewise. You'll probably get tons of that in Brooklyn. Cool. So like so are you right now by yourself? Do you have a team? Do you have any part-timers? Do you have any VAs? What's your situation right now? What's your aspiration moving forward into the future?
So right now it's just me, which is why I really appreciate not only like working with you to win. It's nice to just, have another brain, just have someone else you can relate to and kind of like inspire each other. But yeah, right now it's just me. I definitely have goals. I definitely think I would do the hiring if I really, really needed it. Like I'm not going to just do it just to do it because, I feel like technology can get you so far these days that I'm really only going to hire someone if I'm really hitting these certain goals. But yeah, I definitely learned a lot, just doing this year. And I also signed a non-solicit. So I brought in a bunch of clients at my last company. And then it's like day one, it's like, oh man, I wish I had those 6 clients I I got. And I see them on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, I'm looking for this role. I'm like, damn. So that was also definitely, I definitely started from zero, but yeah, definitely. I actually haven't done recruiting when the economy is a little bit harder. So I feel like being able to push through it during that when the economy is, back in full swing, it's definitely going to pay off.
100%. I think if you can push through now, and if people who are listening can push through now, it's just going to feel like smooth like butter afterwards. I'll tell you, like, it's just going to be, if you can get clients now, once things rebound, it's going to feel twice, three times easier, right? The clients coming in, the cans coming, it's just like all around better. There's just like no struggle
All
at
right.
all. And so, like, I really feel that people who are coming into recruiting for the right reasons, people who have really strong grasps of like the end to end, like what to do to kind of keep this business moving forward, really having a solid grasp of the foundation, not burning bridges, really doing things to create great relationships. I think people who don't necessarily go intentionally to make shortcuts, right? They're all about doing the right steps, being transparent, being fair. Those are the types of people, those types of businesses, especially in a service-based industry like ours, that's really based on relationships, are the ones that are going to be able to push through and continue to grow. So yeah, if you can kind of really develop your core habits right now, Ari, really sharpen those skills, that work ethic, then things are just going to feel literally like black and white once things rebound. But I think out of everything, out of the technologies and tools out there, it's the work ethic that's the most important. And I think that's created from either your whole life, your childhood, or if you had previous experiences like in roles like sales, that can help you create that just reset, next day attack kind of mentality that's really, really helpful on the staffing side to help you find success. Also, like what you said before, so I learned recruiting like you. I had a job in 2014 in big national kind of US staffing firm. And when I left to a small startup to do their internal recruiting. Lasted only about 4 months. They ran out of money. And then I'm like,
Right.
what am I going to do? And I decided at that point to kind of start my own recruiting, be a solo recruiter, kind of freelance contract at the time. And yeah, I also had active non-solicits, non-competes there too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just had to kind of create everything from the ground up.
Yeah. And well, one thing that really stuck to me is like the work ethic thing. I realized like a lot of people can work hard when everything's going well. Like, you have a lot of jobs and you have a lot of candidates and like money's coming in. It's easy to work hard. It's easy to take, a phone call late or whatever when there's money on the other side. You really have to be able to work hard before all the results come in. So that's definitely something I learned where it's like, yeah, when I have a lot of jobs and stuff, of course, it's easy for me to just do tasks and stuff when I just know, money's on the other side. But you have to be able to work hard in the terms of business development. We have to create kind of out of nowhere. That's really where the work ethic, you just have to just, tell yourself like, yeah, you're going to see these results later. Just keep pushing through.
You have to stay humble. And then for me is I try to act as if it's like still my first day starting recruiting. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how many placements I've done. Past is the past. Like I'm thinking only about now and into the future. And just keep showing up no matter how hard or how well you're doing. Just keep doing the basics and you're just planting seeds at the end of the day. They're going to sprout and opportunities will come inevitably. But like if you stop, you fall short, it's gone. And yeah, I loved how you said that it's very easy to not work hard when things are tough, because like when things are tough, that's when it's easy to get distracted. Like, oh, maybe like I need to do another business. Maybe I need to get like a job, or maybe like I need to change my business 180 instead of just really focusing on the basics, right? Which is like, how do I develop a relationship with clients? How do I do that better? How do I
Right.
develop and reach out to clients? How do I do that better? How do I do all of that at volume and at scale and faster and optimize? Like that's all you need to kind of focus on, aside from just like the interview process management, things like that. The second you start getting distracted and you're like, I want to be like a real estate developer, I want to be an e-com manager, I want to like,
Thing again.
right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to spread out yourself too thin, your attention goes away, your business plummets, it's going to be hard to get back from that.
Yeah. And I'm working jobs from, companies I spoke to like 3 or 4 months ago are like, hey, I started working on it. I go, we're on a hiring freeze. We're now we actually have interviews happening for a different role they opened up. So it's definitely those seeds, it all do that work. You might not see it that first week, but it pays off down the road.
So let's talk about some fun stuff. To date, what has been like the biggest commission you've done? Placement commission.
25.
Nice. What's been like your monthly gross personal record so far?
Probably be like, I don't know, like 35, 40.
Ooh, yeah, that's solid. How many placements was that? Was that two? Was that one?
2. Yeah.
Nice. That's solid, Ari. That's really, really
Yeah,
solid
yeah,
for a
definitely
first
first
year.
year. I kind of, yeah, I mean, I haven't done too many placements, but it's nice to just get some in those first year. And it seems like the jobs have finally, really started green lighting as of recently. So, like I was saying, like you put in that work, especially that first year, and it starts paying off eventually. And, you just make it through that first year. It seems like the second year is just going to be finally like all the fruits of your labor.
If someone were to ask you, like, how do you like recruiting now? Is it a good time to be a recruiter? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I was at the agency last year, it was like so easy to get these calls, get this business development, get this. But like I said, if I didn't start during this hard economy, it's just going to be another year before, I learn a lot of stuff. Like I had some good roles where I think I could have closed, but like you said, I didn't push enough candidates. I didn't do, there's nothing like mistakes I made. And now, say when the economy is already getting better, it's like, these next times, these opportunities, if I didn't go through those mistakes, I'd probably have to learn those mistakes again. Yeah, I mean, why not, start? And if you can give yourself a goal and, if you can definitely survive for a year and, why that first year is the hardest, it seems like. I haven't even done the first year. I started January and it's, already picking up a lot. So I can only imagine, year two is going to be a lot better, obviously.
Well, Q4 is typically a very busy time. So I expect things to kind of ramp up a little bit more for not just me, for you, for everybody. We are definitely in a very difficult market right now. But Q4, the great thing about down markets is that everyone's down, but there are degrees of being down, right? Some industries like tech are just getting crushed right now, but there's some companies within tech that are just scaling like crazy. So
Right.
it's all about just finding the right companies, developing those relationships. Some of the best companies we know today, Airbnb, Netflix, Microsoft, like they've all been started in down markets, right? And so like it's not like there are no companies at all around the world or country that's hiring. It's whether or not they want to work with you, or they're already working with partners, right? So I think it's all about being creative, trying to find those opportunities, but just knowing, like you said, everything, even the down market, what's this is as bad as it's gonna get. Maybe it can get a little bit worse, but what always happens, it always rebounds and picks up. So be smart, right? Like stay lean, keep your operations lean, save as much as you can, push through a rainy day. But from what I've seen and heard from your experience, Ari, like you're definitely doing the fundamentals really great. I think it's a huge, huge, huge plus that you developed your sales and BD before becoming like a solo kind of recruiter, because that's the biggest thing that a lot of people struggle on, right? As it's like it's very, very easy to find candidates, or there's a lot of like internal corporate recruiters right now who are really good at finding candidates, but like, you know what, I want to work for myself. They make that pivot into staffing, and then they're like, I have no sales, no BD experience, and they just completely struggle, right? Not being able to develop any relationships on their own, even though they can crush it on the candidate side. So I think for you and for people who are listening, like it's one thing that you and I have in common. We both, to some sort of degree, had sales and BD training before. I think that's helped tremendous. If I were to say it didn't help, I'd be completely lying to you. But it sounds like you're also getting to a good handle with candidate side, and from the candidates I'm seeing from what I would say are very difficult roles, are you're killing it, and it's been a pleasure to kind
Definitely creative with those
of
weird
get
roles. I feel like every
get to
job I
work with
get
you.
is just like the weirdest role anyway, so I'm used to it.
So what's your day-to-day look like? Like what are your working hours?
Well, I don't have like a set. I mean, I just, I usually wake up like maybe like 8 a.m. and then by like 8:30 I'm working. And there's definitely, say I have three jobs, like, all right, well, in the morning I'll work Preston's job first, of course. And then yeah, just make sure it's kind of like, when like I don't know, you've ever played the game Zoo Tycoon? Where like
Zutaku?
Zoo
No.
Tycoon or like Sim City. It's like there's different jobs and sometimes they need a little bit of focus. So if you have like five candidates interviewing at this one and this one only has one, let's shift our resources more to here and get those, healthy and going. So yeah, it's definitely a big part of it. Make sure I do some business development as well. And then as far as like working hours, I don't know if I'm weird about this, but I just look at like, texting back a candidate or emailing back a candidate. I just look at it as like answering a text from a friend. Like it's not really a big deal. Like if I'm out and it's 9 p.m. and some guy and I get an email and they're like, hey, we're looking to schedule this. to me, just like sending a text, like, hey man, X company wants to interview. Do you have time Thursday or Friday around this? And I mean, I guess you can count that as like working hours, but I also look like a large part of recruiting is just like answering, these little like notifications. I don't even really even consider that. It's not like I have to sit at my computer and be sipping a coffee to do that. I could be at a bar in Queens and then just text that and do. So yeah, I definitely say I work just regular, 8, 9 to 5 or 6 or 7, whatever. But, I was in the middle of the day, I'll go work out, I'll go do whatever. And then, if someone hits me up, and just hit them back real quick on our phone.
I think the biggest advantage of that is there'll be times when your clients can only talk in the evening, cans can only talk in the evening, and you kind of have to be okay. I think recruiters that, first of all, like I'm all about work-life balance. I think like, people shouldn't work all day and all night if they don't want to. I think like if you're working for yourself, I think it's a privilege working for yourself and you should just not take it for granted. And so naturally, you're probably going to be working a little bit harder and longer than if you just had a regular job. With that said, though, like there are times where like a candidate can only speak to me at 8 p.m. or a client can only speak to me at like, 10 p.m. because they're traveling. And I would take those and I'm okay with that, like you, because I would rather talk to them now than wait 1, 2, 3 days and risking the chance of the conversations ghosting and kind of disappearing into thin air. Or, if this candidate's amazing, I don't want to slow down my process or that momentum, right? So I think not all recruiters are going to agree or disagree. I think some people are going to, you know what, it's fine. I'm all about work-life balance. I'll respond to them tomorrow. Like that's cool. I think with me, it's probably a little bit more similar to you, where unless you're doing something super important, like you're with family or whatever, that's cool. But like, for most days, if you have time or if your text goes off, it's not a big deal. If it's more important, like a client, I would make time and I would see it through.
Yeah, for sure. And a huge disclaimer, it's like first year of an agent. What I'm speaking is definitely not gospel. I just, just certain, that's just how I do certain things. Like I definitely
Ari,
totally get when people don't want to do that. Like I get that. I'm just
to
saying.
your credit though, my first year, I worked my butt off. I worked almost
Right.
7 days a week, 9, 10, 11 hours a day. Like that's me being completely honest. And I think if people want to come in and start a business, your first year, definitely your first year, 2, 3 are going to be the most difficult. And you
Right.
have to be all in. It has to be consuming. You can't do a business is like a baby. You can't do that part-time. Like you either have to give it your all or you don't if you want to get it off the ground. Right?
Yeah.
So I respect the hard work.
Yeah. Thanks. Hopefully, I look forward to getting some of these wins, man. We're getting close.
Yeah, it's going to happen, Ari. And I got to say, I really appreciate your time. I know that, you were saying earlier, our schedule, we talk to people all day. So even just carving out an hour like this, I know it's pulling you away from sourcing or talking to clients or candidates. So very grateful, but I want to, share your story. And I want to also say that it's been an absolute pleasure working with you so far. Everything that I hope that a partner would have, you check off all the boxes and then some. And so I'm excited to kind of keep on moving forward. And it's not if, Ari, it's when. It's inevitable when these placements are going to start dropping. And so get ready to celebrate together. I think that'd be awesome. But one more question for you. So if someone wanted to ask you and be like, hey, like what if they want to fall in your shoes and hoping to kind of work for themselves one day or get into recruiting and end their first year off on a good note, like what is the one biggest advice you can give to somebody?
I would say, so there's this book called Fanatical Prospecting. Basically, it's one of those books where you read like the first like 15 pages and you kind of get the idea of it. And it's just, you have to keep prospecting clients, you have to keep just doing outreach constantly, doing those emails, doing those in-mails, cold calling people. Cause I'm not like the greatest. I'm not like, I don't cold call people. I'm not like some charming expert or anything. It's just some of those things you just have to do. So I would say maybe even just buy that book, Fanatical Prospecting. Just the idea of, if you have one client, that's a lot of pressure, right? You have 10 clients and one goes on a hiring freeze, you don't even care. So I would say just B2B prospect. And that's a whole, conversation that's, you can't really just answer with one question, but definitely just do the business development work.
What has been the most effective? Cold calling, cold emailing, cold in-mailing in terms of your ROI?
It's definitely been through LinkedIn. What's funny? I would say when I was working at the recruiting agency, I was getting a lot of hits from cold emailing. So I don't know, maybe my website needs some improvement or something, but this year has just been a lot of LinkedIn, a lot of, looking at my engine, like, I said, I do a lot of engineering. So, reach out to these engineers and be like, hey, who handles the hiring? But yeah, I don't know. I get really creative. A big thing is, if you can think of some way to show it's a personal email, that helps. My dad got some operation, some hospital, and I just emailed, how he loved everyone and stuff. And it's like, now I know it's not like a mass email. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of some other ways. I mean, something you could do is if if you've worked well with a client, you place some things, they're really good. You can go on their LinkedIn, go into their connections, type in CEO or founder, director of engineering or whatever, and find maybe like 5 people and be like, hey, I noticed you're connected to these 5 people. We're looking to expand our business. How well do you know? Is there any way you could do an intro? If you get an intro, right there, that's the easiest, warmest thing ever. So yeah, what's cool about recruiting is you're constantly building a network. Every time you connect with an engineer, that's someone that, when they switch jobs, they might become a hiring manager or they know someone. So yeah, you got to be creative. It's not just one thing. It's so many different things.
That's the beauty, Ari. If they're not a hot lead now, they could be a hot lead in the future, right? Or they can lead you to a great lead. So always be respectful, always be professional, plant those seeds, cultivate good relationships, because you never know who they're going to introduce you in the future. So, Ari, I really appreciate it. I think that this chat has been full of just great nuggets, specifically around sales and clients and BD. I'm sure it can give a lot of people value. If people want to reach out to you for any advice or anything, where can they find you?
Yeah, feel free to just email me at arib@lightrecruit.com, ARIB@lightrecruit.com. That's probably a place to go.
Perfect. So if you're listening to this right now, you want to reach out to Ari, feel free to do so. Ari at Light Recruit, thank you so much. Can't wait to do some deals together. And I guess keep it going.
I'm about to send you a candidate, actually.
Yes. Send to me pronto.
Cool.